If you are feeling frazzled, spoiler alert, tonight's show is for you. But first of all, I want to talk about our brains. They are designed to help us adapt to any situation. But right now, we're having to adapt to fascism, and that's not a good thing. And so if your brain right now is going like, that's it's actually a good thing because it's resisting. And we need to resist as long as possible until we're able to put people in power who actually respect the rule of law and the rules that our brains were raised with. And so tonight we're going to be talking about all things education because how are the kids going to save us if the kids are dumb? And MAGA Republicans, they kind of want the kids to be dumb. They're attacking education, as we all know. But maybe we're not even hearing about it anymore because it's all tariff talk. And I think last I checked, I think the tariffs were removed except for China. I don't know where we're at right now on that, but we are all over the place. And so tonight we're going to talk DEI, everything we learned in kindergarten about being nice. I'm trying my hardest to not say mean things at all in order to try to get along in this world and practice what I preach, but it's really hard. And so maybe we do all need to go back to kindergarten. But before we do, we're going to hang out with Mrs. Frazzled. That was the spoiler alert. See, I started with if you're there she is. Hey, Mrs. Frazzled.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm excited that you are here. Now, most people know you from your gentle parenting, your gentle of Republicans, and we are in a world right now where I don't know. I feel like we all need to be gentle parented, and because it's rough out here. It's rough out here.
Yes.
And I'm glad that you're here with us. For everybody who doesn't know Mrs. Frazzled, she's got how many millions of followers on TikTok do you have?
1.4 million on TikTok.
1 point. That's the biggest classroom ever.
Literally, and it feels like it. It's very similar. You have all the same personalities, all the same things going on. We really are just grown up kindergartners at the end of the day.
And what grade did you teach? Was it kindergarten?
Kindergarten, and then I did 1 year in third grade, like a fish out of water. I loved my kids so much, but I was like, whew, it's different. It's very different.
It's different. And you'd like to think that people have developed and that we're continuing to develop, but alas, we are all apparently in retrograde, not just Mercury. That's now direct, thank goodness. But so let's talk about education. You quit teaching. You had a podcast called Teacher Quit Talk. You went full time into talking about education online, and that's obviously incredibly important right now because the Trump administration is dismantling the Department of Education. Before we get started, can you just give us a quick overview on what the Department of Education does? Because people keep getting confused.
I would be honored to give you a brief overview. So, the Department of Education is about allowing all students to access education. The biggest misconception I see is people thinking that it controls what is taught in schools. That's not the case. Actually, there's legal laws in place saying that the federal government cannot mandate what is taught in states. States have the freedom to do that themselves. They take total control of that. Also, your like local district, your school board, they control curriculum. But the Department of Education is about making sure that kids with disabilities, kids in underserved schools, poor areas, they have the same shot at education that kids with privilege have. And it's really, really important because they provide additional funding to make that happen. And they also say to these states and these schools, hey, you have to follow these federal laws like IDEA and Title 1 and and Title 9 and Title 6. Like you have to make sure that you are caring for these students or you're not going to get the 8 to 10% of money that we give you. But a lot of people say, oh, well, 8 to 10%, that's like nothing. We're talking billions of dollars in that. So, that funding and that support and oversight is so, so key. Before we had the US Department of Education, we had a version of it that is very, very old, but it was an office. But what this modern Department of Education is supposed to do is consolidate all of these jobs that go into taking care of our schools in our country and puts them under one roof, specialized, saying like all we do is education all day, every day. Before that is what they want to go back to, where Health and Human Services has one thing, the Treasury has another thing, and we're kind of scattered to the wind. So, the Department of Education, in addition to funding and oversight and protection for our most vulnerable students, they're also like just this is all they do. And that's really important when we're talking about something like the government that is,
Well,
you know,
that's, I
taking care of
mean,
us.
because that's efficient, right? To have it
Exactly.
all housed in one place. And
Mhm.
so the fact that it's now going to be handled piecemeal makes it much more difficult to track things. So who's protecting our kids now? Linda McMahon? Like, what's happening with the Department of Ed? Like, who's protecting? What's happening?
Right. I mean, the craziest thing, one of the biggest offices that I look to for federal oversight is the Office of Civil Rights. And they slashed it in half. There were 12 offices. They closed 7. Now we have 5. So this guy in charge is a Federalist Society dude, Craig Trainer, who is just like absolutely no true civil rights oversight is happening. What they're doing now is saying they're protecting the federal laws, but they're flipping the interpretation of the federal civil rights laws on their head. And they're saying, oh, well, you know what? We're going to protect against reverse racism. You know, the totally, totally real thing that is the number one priority right now. Like that's the logic is so inside out and upside down that it's almost as if now that we have the Department of Education with these Trump administration people installed, they're not protecting education in the way that they should. In fact, they are attacking public education because Linda McMahon is being told to put herself out of a job. Whether or not that's legal or federally possible is a whole other discussion, but that's what they're doing. They're trying to chop the legs off of this department, chop these departments, these offices in half. They're trying to warp reality and warp civil rights language and civil rights laws so that the Department of Education at a federal level is almost unusable. So when we look to who's taking care of our kids, it's gonna have to be our state departments of education. Every single state has their own state US Department of State US. Every single state has their own Department of Education. They also have districts, they also have school boards, and there's a lot of power there because that's the level of people who are going to have to say to the Trump administration, no, I am not going to get rid of DEI and DEIA at my schools. No, I am not going to interpret these civil rights laws the way that you say that I should. I'm going to interpret these civil rights laws the way that they were intended to be interpreted for the people they're intended to protect. So
But
when we're kind
one
of
question though,
left.
because what does that mean then for states like Oklahoma, where
I
you
know.
have Ryan Walters is the superintendent of education at Tulsa schools, but in general, what happens in these states where they're not necessarily concerned with protecting the civil rights of students or accessibility laws or anything like that? The federal government now, I'm assuming, can't come in or won't come in. So what happens there?
It is a disaster. I mean, it really just is. We, as the people, have to continue to push these lawmakers, but they time and time again have indicated that they really don't care. They really just plug their ears and say, la, 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 I'm going to do what I want. And that is the frightening part. And that is why I'm constantly screeching about protecting the US Department of Education so that we don't lose it entirely. When Betsy DeVos was in for Trump's first term, one of the things she did with states like Oklahoma and red states in general is she turned a blind eye to them. And that caused a monster that we are still dealing with today because that lack of oversight is like a snowball. If there is simply no one left, who watches the watchmen, you know? So for states like Oklahoma, the fight is very, very real. And it's going to take a lot of blue dots, finding other blue dots and standing up and saying enough is enough. Because One thing about the right, in particular extremist education groups like, say, Moms for Liberty, for
Mhm.
example, they are very well funded and well connected. So we got to get a little scrappy and show up and keep showing up at places like school board meetings and saying, I am not going anywhere. This
Mhm.
matters to me. This matters to my kids. A lot of Oklahomans do not like Ryan Walters.
That's
Heck,
good to know.
a lot of Republicans in Oklahoma think he's a little too much. So we
That says
just
a lot.
really need to keep pressing these people. There are also lawmakers in very vulnerable seats, and this depends on where you live, but there are people in Congress that are in a vulnerable spot. They know that their district is like 50-50 and they could lose their seat, and we need to threaten that they are going to lose their seat. So being loud, being what I call annoying and
Mhm.
staying on them is one of the ways that we can help try to take our power back at the state and local level.
It feels like you are, everything you're saying feels very actionable. Are you feeling hopeful that people, now that they're seeing how bad things are, because a lot of people are like, I didn't expect it to be this bad. Do you feel like maybe the parent who would have never thought to run for school board is now thinking of running?
That is my deepest, deepest hope. I I hesitate to say that I'm hopeful, but I'm very like encouraged by this type of work. It encourages me to see other people getting involved in advocacy. It encourages me to see education, public education, being talked about on the world stage right now. It's very different than Trump's first term. I was also talking about this stuff on TikTok during Biden's early days and Trump's transition out. And it's different. The pressure is on, and one of the things I'm trying to do is bring people into like getting comfy with getting local. I just put out a Substack on Sunday where I was talking about how we can start school board accountability clubs, how we can
Mm.
make our own little groups of people, comfort in numbers, all of that, and take it to the school board and just be a presence. So that kind of stuff makes me hopeful because seeing other people getting involved and seeing other people want to be involved, I'm
Mm.
like, okay, we might have something here. We just have to stay on top of it. And I think the fear in me is what keeps me urgently activated and like, I have to post, I have to talk about this, it's like responsibility.
Well, definitely. And for me, if I'm not speaking out about things and encouraging people to get involved, I myself become depressed. Like I spiral very
Yeah.
quickly when I am not being vocal. And sometimes I'm like, okay, that's why it's important, because even if one person decides to take action based on a video you post or something that you say, that means something. That means something.
Yes.
And obviously millions are. So, what would you say now? Because a lot of people are stressed out, and people are, busy, and they say, "I don't have time to get involved." I was just reading a book that was actually mentioned in Mallory McMorrow's book. I think the author's name is Eaton Marsh, and he talks about political hobbyism, which is basically posting and being online and making it an activity versus going to a school board meeting and testifying. What can you say to the people who are like, I don't have time to show up to a school board meeting?
I think there are different tiers of activism and civic engagement where you can find your niche, so to speak. I think that every level is really important, but I think that we do need to find what we're going to do because we want it to be sustainable. This is a
Mhm.
long road, this is a long fight. But especially people who are white ladies like me, we need to definitely be using our privilege and our voices and getting into spaces. So I'm a little bit tougher love on people like me who I'm like, you kind of have you can chill out for a second, but you gotta not check out and you gotta figure out what you're gonna do because you have to do something. That's my opinion on the thing because if we do nothing, nothing is going to change. So I think it's like you don't have to go to a school board meeting, but you could like engage by watching a school board meeting on Zoom in the background while you're cooking dinner and then text your friends and be like, we should submit a question to the school board via email and figure out what's going on with X, Y, or Z. Or, hey, I love what that school board member is doing. I want them to feel encouraged that we love that. We want to see more of
Mm.
that. So let's send them an email about that. There's different things that you can do. It's not all doom and gloom 24/7, but try to find what kind of civic engagement can spur you on and make you feel hopeful and inspired, even if only for an hour. You're like, that felt really good. That felt like a step in the right direction. We need that. And you don't have to go full blown run for school board, go to school board meetings, whatever, but there's definitely stuff you can do.
I
Emily on
like
your
that
phone has
you
a great like tiered list of different things you can do, and I would highly recommend to find something.
I like the recommendation of cooking and having a school board meeting on in the background because that's habit stacking, which
Mm-hmm.
is something I don't know what discipline habit stacking comes from, but I know I use it all the time. So I only allow myself to scroll through social media when I'm at the gym. That way I am not spending too much time on it, but I'm also all the rage that I get from seeing things, I work it out right away and I'm able to think more clearly. And so
Yes.
yes, habit stacking, folks. That would be incredibly helpful, and it is important because I don't. Have you read Jason Stanley's book, Erasing History, his latest one?
No, but I want to.
So we had him on, and he in the book he talks about how obviously fascists go after education first and foremost, and doing much of what you said earlier, which is twisting the interpretation of laws, and all of a sudden it is that history is written by the winners, and so kids who are raised in Trump's admin education world might come out with a very different worldview than millennials or than even Gen Z. And I mean we're already seeing it with some of the young men who have gone into the manosphere and feel very differently about the world than we thought they would. So it is incredibly important. What is your take on the whole attack on teachers, like this idea that it's parents versus teachers as opposed to the collaborative effort of parents and teachers?
I just think it is such a detriment to the fight that we're fighting. I actually, on Saturday, I put out a Substack about what your generation did to you and like looking at different
Mm.
generations and how their public education years shaped them in their worldview and their things that we like think about when we think about certain generations. And it's really tale as old as time with the teachers versus parents and teachers versus the world kind of thing. I mean, it's just such a shame because I remember when my first year when I was teaching, one of the first lessons, they always say that you learn most of your teaching training gets learned your first year on the ground when you're experiencing everything. And boy, is that true. My first year, it was so hot in my room that I was like, it was like 90 degrees to 100 degrees in the room. And I was sweating. And I was telling admin, I was like, this is crazy. I have little babies in the room. I'm very uncomfortable. They should not be enduring this heat. This is crazy pants. And they were like, oh, yeah, we'll get you an AC. We'll get you an AC. We'll get you an AC. Don't worry about it. Finally, I called up the class parents and I said, guess what is happening? And if you repeat this to admin, I will say, I don't know who told them that. Wasn't me.
Well,
But we need ACs. Literally 2 days later, I had 4 ACs in my room. 4. And I was like,
okay, geez.
oh, I have learned that if we need something done, we need to go with the parents together. Because if we listened to teachers, we would not be in any of these messes that we are in. Teachers are simply not consulted about the things that are imposed upon them on any level. Like, when you're asked for your input or teachers are given a seat at the table, it feels like a gift when it should be the bare minimum. But that's the world that we're living in. And parents and teachers, at the end of the day, really, really want the same things. By and large, parents and teachers want the best thing for the kids that are in the public education system right now. We want the same things. So I just it
Well,
devastates me
I
really
mean,
when
and
I
it's
see the tax on teachers.
well, yeah, and with the attacks on teachers, it's wild to me that people think that someone would go through teacher training, go to become a teacher in a field that everybody knows isn't very supported, and they're doing it for the wrong reasons because somehow they want to hurt kids or attack kids or groom children. Like, it's insane to me that somebody thinks that somebody would do all that for a wage that is in many times not even livable in the city in which they're teaching. Like, it's just
Yes.
again, this is what propaganda has done, unfortunately. And
Yes.
um, in the reverse, I think shows like Abbott Elementary, I'm curious, do you watch it and do you feel like it is helping people? You don't watch Abbott
I
Elementary?
can't.
Oh no. Is it because do you just wait? Tell me more. Tell me
I
why.
don't know what it is. I've tried to psychoanalyze myself about it because I like it when I watch it, but it gives me like I'm sad because I'm not teaching anymore. Like I'm very sad and it's very realistic. Obviously, I went out of my own volition. Like I went out on what the kids call eternity leave when you go out on maternity and you don't come back, and I constantly want to come back.
Okay.
It's my dream job. So I watch Abbott and it's so realistic and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll start crying. I don't know. And then also just like the the issues that they raise, like sometimes I'm just like, oh, it brings it back the memories, but I'm glad that shows like Abbott are on TV and they're so popular because I do think people need to realize what it's like in the system. And I keep saying public education, and I do want to name that I'm saying that because when these attacks on school are happening, they're going after public school teachers. They're saying pull your kids and put them in private. They're saying pull your kids because private schools are so much better. They want to privatize education. And really they get it the hardest. And it's hard to like remember the days.
Well, I don't know if you know this about me, but I taught very briefly, very briefly. I taught so when I was in grad school, I taught at it was a charter school for arts and minds. I don't even think it's there anymore. This is a
Mhm.
long time ago, and a student got mad at me and told his mom about the book that I was teaching, and I was told I couldn't teach that book anymore, and so I quit.
Good for you. My
I was like,
gosh.
no, I was like, I'm not doing all this to be told what I can and cannot teach. And so
Yes.
that goes to say, like, I am so grateful for the teachers who have to handle both what's coming from administration and also from a wide variety of parents who all have different needs and wants and still are able to stay sane. And I'm guessing, is that where Mrs. Frazzled came from? It's hard to stay sane. And is it a play on the magic, was it the Magic School
Yes.
Bus?
I saw a meme like in 2019 or something that said, "I'm more Miss Frazzled than Miss Frizzle." And at the time, I was just on Instagram and the teachers were so curated and perfect and like had it all together and we're doing the room transformations. That was the big trend back in the day. And I was like, perhaps we need some representation of some teachers that are a little more frazzled than Miss Frizzle with her elaborate field trips. So yeah.
Well, and this idea, and we were talking about this before the show, is this idea to present, and this is across the board of presenting a very like polished presence. And I think the one good thing about social media is that we're starting to come into our own as far as just being able to be ourselves, and not all of us are always put together. You and I, we both have ADHD. We were both talking about this, and this is the supports that we need to be able to get things done, and kids need these supports, and these supports are under attack by
Yeah.
Project 2025, by the Trump administration. And so you are working on that right now, and so I want to pull up the graphic that yeah, there it is. 83%. That's that's a terrifying number. And
Yes.
then you also you track which ones, and it's only day 74 now. I think we're probably at day 80 or so, and then you have a graphic, which I want everybody, it's too small to see up here, but I want you to see just what the format of it looks like, so that you can then go to Mrs. Frazzled's Instagram and check and see what has been implemented so far. So talking about this, there is the IDEA Act, and you were talking to Senator Schiff about this, who is
Yes.
your senator. We have that clip. We don't have that clip, but can you tell us? We have a different clip, but can you tell us about the IDEA Act and what it is, what it's supposed to protect, and who in the world we're supposed to call to make sure that it happens?
Yes. Okay. So this is a reintroduced bill. They've tried this one before. This is the IDEA Full Funding Act. It was introduced by by Senator Van Hollen. It's reintroduced for this Congress now. And Senators Padilla and Schiff from California are co sponsors on it. And this is the Full Funding Act because when IDEA was signed into law, Congress said we will pay 40% of what it costs to educate students with disabilities. And we have never gotten close to 40%. So when I say full funding, it's just the full promise. It's not
Mhm.
100%. It wasn't even promised to be 100%, but we're just looking to get a little closer to that 40% number because this year, 12% of the IDEA has been funded. This is
12.
the education law that protects students and gives disabled students accessibility to education. And we really, 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 really need this funding. And so, this baffling thing to me is that we're only at 12%, and the Trump administration is trying to take it away. So, we should have been fully funding IDEA 50 years ago, you know? And so right now, this bill, you can call your federal representatives, you can call your Congress people, your senators, your representatives, and you can ask them to co sponsor this bill to stand up and say, we need to be serving these students as we promised we would. And that is going to be extra, extra, extra important as we look at federal protections chipped away when the U.S. Department of Education is under attack, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, because it makes a ton of sense because right now it seems like they're trying to make children expendable. Like it's like if you can't keep up, you're not wanted. And that feels very, very dangerous. It feels like a very slippery slope to deciding who is worthy of an education and who is not. And so, yes, please, everyone, you should have your senators and your Congress people on speed dial at this point. And you talked to Senator Schiff about that. Is it worth it to even call our representatives? And so let's roll that clip because he has an
The
answer.
most common questions I get is, does calling my representative even matter? I asked Senator Adam Schiff directly, and the answer is yes, it absolutely matters. Here's why.
What I will often ask my staff is, what are we hearing on this bill? What are we hearing on this measure? How many letters have we gotten? How many calls? And what are they saying? So it's important to me, and I know that's true of many of my colleagues. Now, there certainly are people here that are deaf to their constituents' pleas, and they have other priorities. But they need to know if they're going to vote against schools and against teachers and against kids, that they're going to pay a price on election day. I think a lot of my Republican friends right now are afraid to go to a town hall with their constituents because they know what they're going to hear, and it's not going to be good.
So how do we gentle parent these Congress people who are trying to ignore or pretend that their constituents don't exist?
I would love to gentle parent them, but I am more of the mind that we need to be so annoying and just keep calling them. And you can call them on your commute in the morning. You can call them like habit stacking like we talked about. If you're doing something else, just call them. Why the heck not? Some people like to go out on the weekends and have a girls' night out and a couple of drinks, and then they're calling their senators together. after a glass or two of wine. I really don't care what you need to do to get it done. Just call them. And they are
Okay.
straight up ignoring people. They are also lying to people. When you call them, they're like, "Oh, what's that? We're not doing that. That wouldn't be us." They are doing things that you're calling about and saying that. So we just need to be the squeaky wheel and keep going. Definitely, I think it's worth it. I think that it's one of our ways to make our voices heard. At least they tally our calls. So at least we have that. Like, they know that something's going on with a certain bill because they're getting calls and emails and emails and emails about it. So I think that's one way we can say this is really important to us. And you need to make it important to you.
I love the idea of drinking and dialing, drunk dialing our Congress people. I think I saw a reel on that went viral, and it was hilarious. And I don't drink that much, but maybe I should. Maybe that should be my new thing. I got to do something to get. For me, it's gonna be cupcakes and dialing, like just sugar high.
I know. I'm like, what's my vice, guys? I'm like crowdsourcing ideas for a vice. And they're like, ice cream,
Ice cream, cupcakes.
chips. I'm like, whatever. Let's try it all.
Yeah, no, for me, it's chips, it's cupcakes, and a lot of it. To be honest with you, I think I go through a bag of potato chips every other day,
So good.
sometimes every day. So, crunch, crunch. I am so excited that you were able to join us to kind of help talk about education, because everybody only wants to talk about tariffs right now. And I feel like even tariffs affect teachers because teachers have to buy their own school supplies a lot of the times, and now those are going to be more expensive.
Yes. And it
So,
affects everybody because property taxes fund schools. So if your money is all tied up in things that you're buying, you're not going to buy a house, and we need homeowners to pay the property taxes so we can fund schools. It's all like together, I promise.
it's all together, and not in a clusterfuck kind of way, but all together, that it's all connected. And we have a steep road ahead, a steep hill ahead, but if we work together, we're going to do it. It's a group project. Yes, please check out her new Substack, Frazzled About Education. You just launched your Substack, I think, in mid-March. You launched it early because I think there was some craziness going on that you were like, let me
March
just go ahead.
22nd, but I launched it early because of the abolish the Department of Education executive order. I was like, I gotta write something real quick.
I love it. Always on. Even when you're off, you're like, no, this needs to be talked about. It's important. So make sure to head to her Substack and follow her there. Thank you so much. I'm going to have you on in case we need to put together a syllabus and a curriculum for the future. I feel like I want a syllabus for people. I try to give assignments at the end of every show, and I don't know that anybody actually does them, but it makes me feel good.
I love it, and I am always here. I always send in my newsletter, I send homework assignments too, where I'm like, this is what you need to call about this week or whatever. So I'm ready, and talking to you is always a pleasure. Whatever you need, I'm here.
Amazing, great. It'll give us a feeling of control in a world of chaos, just like Cher in Clueless, one of my favorite
Exactly.
movies. Always gotta drop that reference. Well, thank you, Mrs. Frazzled. I will see you. I will see you out there. I will be sharing, liking, subscribing, and doing all the things. All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. All right. I feel actually empowered right now because it is the small things that we can do, like habit stacking and cooking dinner while we're watching a local school board meeting, to be able to get more knowledge about what's happening and how we can contribute to our local community, where we're going to see the benefits of it that much more quickly. And that will get us through the next, I don't even want to think about it. I love the idea of habit stacking. So I want you to think of something that you really enjoy doing that you can also do at the same time as maybe giving a ring-a-ding-ding to your Congress folks, because they need to hear from you, as Mrs. Frazzled said. So Thank you again for joining me. I'm Maya May. This has been Punching Up. Please check out the other Lincoln Square Media shows. There's a ton of them right now. We're all over Substack, and I promise to start posting on my Substack very soon. Maybe that should be my assignment to myself, is that I start posting on my Substack. I will do that. Until then, I'll see you next week.